Writers. Today I want to teach you that after writers develop their characters, they draft possible plots for their stories. Fiction writers plan by plotting the arc of the story, and specifically by aiming to intensify the problem. They do this by using what they know about plotting and then choosing from a variety of tools to help them plan. Many famous writers rely on story arcs to think through the plots of their stories. And of course, there isn't just one way a story can go. Kurt Vonnegut once laid out 5 common story arcs that stories follow. One, for example, he calls Man in Whole. He described it this way: you will see this story over and over again. People love it, and it is not copyrighted. The story is Man in Whole. But the story needn't be about a man or a hole. It's this: somebody gets into trouble, gets out of it again. It is not accidental that the line ends up higher than where it began. This is encouraging to readers. Here's another one. See if you can guess what story this describes. It's a famous one. The arc begins way down here with a truly despondent girl whose mother died and whose dad remarried a horrible woman with 2 horrible daughters who treat this girl like a servant. Things are about as bad as they can get for this girl. And then there's an invitation to a party, and everyone gets to go except the narrator. But then a fairy godmother appears, and she sends the narrator off to the party, dressed to the hilt. Things shoot way up from there because Cinderella, you guessed it, attracts the prince's attention. And then, of course, as you all know, when she leaves the party and drops her shoe, things go back to being rotten for her. Except they aren't as bad as they used to be because Cinderella now has memories of a perfect evening. And when the prince locates a girl who fits the shoe, things spiral to infinite amounts of happily ever after for Cinderella. Notice that these 2 arcs look very different from each other, but what overlaps is that things go up and down. Both arcs rise and fall as a plot rises and falls. Story arcs can help you figure out the rises and falls of your own plot because they remind you that it's not just one event after another with no real change or climb. It's like each scene in the arc is a whole new movement for your character. That's what makes readers want to keep reading to find out how the character will get to the other side of the arc. Story arc also shows you that something is going to happen and things are getting tough. Then something happens as the story curves or arcs that changes things or that solves your character's problem. After that, things change. Your character is different and there isn't a feeling of anticipation anymore. Writers. Your next unit is going to be a reading unit, and we'll learn more about how stories go. That usually the main character has wants, and something gets in the way of him or her getting their wants. So the character encounters trouble or a problem. And today, we learn that usually after encountering the problem, the character has to deal with that problem somehow, which gives movement to the story. Often, the problem intensifies before getting resolved, with the character experiencing several challenges along the way. Or it gets resolved in a different way than the character imagined or hoped for. In this way, the story doesn't just go from one event to another in a flat way, but rather each scene builds on the one before it. Authors always know that the trouble will grow and that characters will make choices, some of which probably won't work out. And authors also know that somehow, in the midst of all the trouble, somehow there will be something that makes a difference. When we plot our Esmeralda story, I know that our character will struggle to achieve what she yearns for, that our character will make choices. Some of these choices may not work out. Right now, we don't know which ones exactly, but we do know that something will happen that makes a difference. Our character will find a way to resolve the struggle, or she will change her sense of what she wants. And we know that just as a story arc climbs and then changes, Esmeralda will take actions and things will happen that will result in a change. Go back to the lesson platform for the next activity where we will start to plot Esmeralda's story.